Hey guys, welcome to Bite Me. This is season 2, episode 11, The Cave Collective. I can't say that in the Black Hills or in South Dakota in general, there are a lot of resources for at-risk youth, though I can rightfully claim that they don't exist either. I can't rightfully claim. Some of them exist, but not all. The few I've come across over the years more than made up for the love, what they lacked in resources and funding. Kids really do want to be heard and not just seen. I really believe that makes all the difference, which is why I've invited individuals from Rapid City's one and only Youth Arts Center here today to talk about a place you can go and truly be yourself, the Cave Collective. Dexter from the Cave Collective, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your establishment?
Sure. So my name is Dexter Carmen. I'm the executive director at the Cave Collective. We started the Cave Collective about 3 years ago, and we'll go more into that later on, I'm sure. But my whole life, for me personally, when I was a kid, I really struggled. I had really bad anxiety and depression, and I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so as a teenager, with not having resources available, I grew up kind of in poverty. Um, and so not having resources and not having a place to go where I felt safe, that was an unfortunately kind of defining thing for my through these shows, going to these DIY events and concerts. I really was able to find my people. But there was a lot of baggage that came with those events. You see a lot of like drinking and drug use in the parking lot. You also see a lot of like 16-year-old girls hanging out with like 25-year-old dudes, that kind of a thing.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a common thing I think in underground music scenes. It's
Like CBGB Omfug or like that type of hole. Am I saying
I,
that right?
well, yeah, I just feel like the DIY underground music scene in general. It's becoming more talked about and people are more aware of it, but it's just the dynamic that you have these young women who go to these shows, and then you have these young but not as young guys playing the shows a lot of times who you get, we talked about power dynamics earlier, and
Yeah.
these
It's
young women look,
predatory.
yeah, it's predatory. Exactly. That's exactly it. And so Natasha and I, my partner, we really wanted to start a space where we could take all the best things from DIY underground music and the culture and the scene and kind of filter out some of those more negative aspects. And that's what led us to the Cave Collective.
Yeah, that seems like I've been to the Cave Collective with Andrea, my friend Andrea, and she works there a part of the time. And it looks like a place where you can enjoy all of the artistic aspects, musical aspects, but none of the drugs and booze, which is appropriate
Yeah.
because one, a liquor license is expensive, drugs are illegal, and three, there's a lot of, I mean, Cave Collective, anybody can go, but it's typically a youth scene, is my understanding, a safe place for youth. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a youth center. I'm very careful not to let people know that this is an all ages space.
Sure.
This means 8 to 88 years old, and anywhere in between on either side of that. We really want to be a space where so much of our society is segregated in various ways, and to have a place where everyone can come together, no matter where you're coming from, what your background is, or who you are, and make community. I think that we've lost touch with community in this modern age, and so trying to reestablish that kind of grassroots community is a big part of it. When we say we're not, I wouldn't say that we're youth focused, but we're youth driven. And what youth driven means is that we actually have young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who sit on our board of directors with us, who work the coffee shop. It's not so much saying this is a place for kids, this is a place for everybody. But if you're
Yeah.
going to you have a place for everybody, you have to include young people in the decision-making processes
Yeah.
for space.
Yeah, that's the future. It makes sense. I mean, you talked a little bit about how it was started in your mind, and that's driven by personal experiences in your youth. Um, what was there a particular experience in your mind that stands out for you? Like when you said, okay, I need to get this done. I think before the podcast, we talked a little bit about something that happened when you were traveling.
Yeah, well, there was a whole series of experiences that I landed in South Dakota by accident, and
Sure.
um,
What a great place to land by accident. Jeez, you must be the luckiest guy in the world.
I do feel like the luckiest guy in the world. It's not where I expected to find so much fortune, but things have turned out miraculously well for me, and I'm deeply grateful for that.
That's wonderful.
And I think that has to do with a lot of that, the same reasons that a lot of folks leave South Dakota, or don't feel safe here, or don't feel comfortable here. Coming from Portland, I was able to bring some of my own perspective to the table and kind of help create that space.
Their number one feminist state. I just want to throw that out there. I love Oregon.
Yes,
I
love Oregon too.
Fred Armisen makes me happy. I like to watch Portlandia.
Yeah.
So that's all the more I know about Oregon. But from people I've talked to, Portlandia and Oregon kind of one and the same for mentalities. So
yeah, I think people in Portland get really pissed off at that show, but it's only because it's so accurate. They don't. It's like I heard that like Metallica watched the movie Spinal Tap and they were all traumatized by it, even though it was a mockumentary. It was just like too close to home. I think,
yeah, well, Metallica. Ugh, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, they like to cry a little, Lars.
That's right.
So, but you landed here, and you've. Oh wow, where your internet's doing all sorts of cool things. It's ringing the doorbell. It's.
Oh, that's exciting.
But so you landed here and you feel like it was a magical experience for you, and you were able to bring some of your experience here, and then how did that transcend into the Cave Collective?
Yeah, so it all started for me personally. I did music for almost 8 years. I played in a lot of bands when I was in my teenage years and early 20s, and then I stopped playing altogether for a very, very long time.
You are a guitarist, drummer, bassist. What are you?
I'm a guitarist and songwriter,
okay. Nice.
I can play a couple instruments, but that's kind of the one I mostly play.
Sure.
What was I saying?
We were talking about how your personal experiences and landing in South Dakota
transitioned. Yeah. So I started playing shows again when I first moved out here. And it was my first time playing in all this time. And an old friend of mine, Natasha, booked me for my first gig out here. And it was a really powerful experience. It just felt really, really good. That's my favorite thing about art, is it gives you an opportunity to be seen. And I think that's, you talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think that one we don't talk about nearly enough is people really want to be seen. People want to have their humanity acknowledged.
Yeah.
And I think art is an excellent way to do that. And so I played this show, walked away with that impression. And then I started dating Natasha shortly after I played that show. And she was expressing to me that she had this dream of wanting to start a venue. And here I was trying to figure out why the hell I just landed accidentally in South Dakota. And this amazing woman is like, hey, we should start a venue together. And I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the reason. I found it. And awesome. we started the Cave Collective after 3 months of dating, and it's been going strong since.
And how long is that exactly?
That's 3 years.
Wow.
It'll be 3 years in May.
That's really good for a new business. I just want everybody to know, for a new business in South Dakota, that's, I think, nonprofit. I believe you guys are, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's really good for a nonprofit, because we see a lot of turnover with that here because they don't get a lot of support. On that note, the Cave Collective is greatly geared towards exploring creative outlets, music, art, poetry, and you talked about how it's important, I think what you were saying, for personal expression, to have that put out there and have people acknowledge it. What kinds of talents have you seen come out of this, and how did you get in touch with those artists? If people want to play, do they just come in? Or, I mean, tell us about the experience of Cave Collective performing in general.
Yeah, generally speaking, if you want, so we have an open door policy where if you want to play at the Cave Collective, and pretty much our only rule is no violence or misogyny in your lyrical content. Beyond that, we're pretty much open to anything. And so we just say, if you want to perform at the Collective, shoot us an email, hit us up on Facebook, give us a call, or just wander in and grab a cup of coffee and say hi. And we'll book you. And we also pay our local bands. Sometimes it's not a whole lot, depending on the turnout. But we try to pay everyone who performs at the Cave Collective. And so it's an opportunity for artists who may be trying to find a following for themselves, but don't have that foot in the door yet to get their foot in the door. Our open mic nights on Wednesday nights are a big night for that. You see between 15 and 20 performers almost come in on open mic nights. And a lot of times during that, I'll hang out at open mic nights and kind of scout for talent. And so a lot of times someone will perform a couple songs and I'll say, hey, do you want to play a whole set, on this date? So if you want to play a show at the Cave, coming down to open mic and doing a rehearsal of sorts is a great way to do that.
Nice. And have you seen growth in that over the course of 3 years? Like, would you say you have a problem booking people, or do you keep pretty steady?
We keep pretty steady. Right now it's been difficult. And I'm not going to lie about that. With COVID going on, when we closed down for our physical location for a year. I say we've been in business for years, but we were acting as a community organization during COVID. So we shut down our brick and mortar location, and we did like a drive-in concert. We did like a concert in the park. We did some outdoor events. So I still say we were doing work. But we just opened this new location back in May, and the vaccines were going around and everything. And we had pretty high hopes that we were on the tail end of this. And then Delta and now Omicron have followed. And what we've found is that a lot of touring bands are not touring still. So that was kind of how we did things with the old shows, is that we'd have the touring band would contact us first, and then we'd build a bill of locals based around the touring band to support them. Lately, without the touring bands, we've had to book a lot more locals, which in a way has been really beneficial because it's giving our local musicians a lot more stage time. I also think that turnout has been decreased some because there are only so many bands in Rapid City that you can book.
Right.
And so we end up having the same performers once or twice a month sometimes. So I'm really looking forward to having those touring bands come through more. Also because you see when young people or people of any age see a touring band, I think that's really inspiring when you see someone who's like,
it's exotic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not so close to home. Like, oh, that's Chaz. I went to high school with him.
Yeah, exactly. It's something different, but it also tells them that, these aren't superheroes. I can do this too. Like, these are just normal people like me. And if I can. And so that's one of my favorite things, is seeing all the new bands that have come out of the Cave Collective as a result of people going to our shows.
Nice. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. All right, guys, welcome back to Bite Me. It's season 2, episode 11, The Cave Collective. We have Dexter here. So funding for the Cave Collective is sparse. We just talked a little bit about how COVID has affected some of the dynamics to which your organization was able to operate. I know that you applied for some city funding that I think hadn't gone through. And it is hard to get funding in South Dakota because there's a lot of hoops and avenues you got to jump through. Apparently, if you're a rich white guy, you can get funded for anything. But if you're just a little collective, that's a little harder. With the future of Cave Collective and how people get involved, like, how would they help and support in continued efforts to engage with your community and local artists? Like, what are you needing to keep this going?
Number one thing I would say, more than money, more than volunteers, we need people to come to our events.
Yeah.
Not saying that people come to the events right now. On average, we see between 20 and 30 people at a show. Some of our shows have upwards of 80 to 100. But what I hear a lot of is, wow, what you guys are doing down there at the Cave is so cool. Sometime I'll have some time to get down there.
Yeah.
And that happens so often, where people think what we're doing is really awesome, but they haven't made it down themselves. If people want to see this space in Rapid City and people want to see this space continue, we really need community support. Come down and buy your cup of coffee at the Cave Collective instead of your other, another place. Come down and see a show. Just stop in, tell your friends about the Cave Collective. That organic growth is the number one thing we need, of people just coming down and seeing what we do there. I think the strongest sales pitch we have as to our value as an organization is when someone comes down to like an open mic night, like we were talking about, and sees the dynamics at play there. There's a sacred air to the space, that there's something special happening there. And I can't describe that over a podcast or over a Facebook post.
If I may, I will describe it for you. When I came to visit the Cave Collective, Andrea was there that night. There wasn't a lot going on because we were just there on a random night. It was me and my partner, Eric, and I call mine my partner too. I think that's interesting that we both do that. But anyways, we went down, we got a coffee. I think I got an Italian soda. It was delicious, by the way. The barista was fantastic. There was a kid that came in with his family, and you could tell they were like a tourist family. They were pretty Midwestern, and the kid was very interested in what was going on. And he's like, yeah, I really wanted to come in here and see this. And the parents were very rigid and very like, okay, let's get out of here. And when they left, like, it was very evident to us, like, what was going on. Like, this kid was comfortable with his sexuality and his parents weren't, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They left, and I was like, oh, well, we must not have been for those people. And Andrea said, but it looks like their kid's going to really need us one day. And that, I think, is the air of what you're talking about, that comfortability, that sacredness, that you come here and you be who you are. But maybe I'm wrong. But that's
exactly it.
Yeah. I mean, is it hard to create that atmosphere, or how do you keep it like that?
No, it was an accident. And that's, I wouldn't say it was completely an accident. We've always had these intentions, and we're all people who believe in equity and opportunity and representation. But none of us were like, we're going to make the safest, most homey, warm feeling space in Rapid. I don't think that any of us thought we were going to do that when we opened the cave. It was just this natural thing that formed. And now we all kind of feel like we're stewards of it. It's something bigger than it's bigger than any of us. It's greater than the sum of its parts. And it's just a real honor to be able to be a part of it and witness it grow.
Do you have a plan for where this goes next, either way, whether it grows or whether it dwindles?
Yeah, so it's definitely growing. In the new year, a couple of the things that we're working on right now, we're actually building a kitchen. So we're going to start serving food at the Cave Collective. And then we're expanding our hours to be open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So more regular coffee shop hours, eventually hoping to go to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Once we can afford staff. And I think that having those expanded hours is really going to help out. We're also launching some classes, some songwriting classes, some filmmaking classes. Those are coming next year. And then we've been talking about Andrea. She's helping us get a maker space for band merchandise set up. So you can come in and print t-shirts, coffee cups, make buttons, stickers.
She's great with the Cricut machine. That thing makes me angry. Oh my God. Tears and everything. I say, you're gonna make my t-shirts because I can't do this. I had a Cricut machine once, and it's causing fights between me and my family. So you don't ever want to have that in your creative space. Like, but
right,
just pay someone else to do it. So I think that's great that you can foster that in there. And if you have a kitchen, you're gonna give Harriet and Oak a run for their money because you're right across the street from them.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll find out how it goes. I think that Harriet and Oak really has a really strong established customer base, and they're actually financial supporters of the cave. So
Are they?
Yeah, they've been amazing.
We go there every Saturday. I don't have anything good but good things to say about those people. I'm addicted. Oh, there you are. We lost you for a second.
Yeah. I'm back.
About how great Harriet and Oak is, but you're saying they help finance a portion.
Yeah. During our fundraiser last year, they donated a pretty large sum, and they've provided advice when we were setting up our coffee shop. They've been huge supporters of the cave. So I'm really hoping that we have a different kind of customer base. We're like kind of more the alternative scene. So that's what I'm for, is like, I mentioned I'm from Portland. And alternative coffee shops in places like Portland and Denver, those are pretty common spaces. And so I'm really hoping that there's enough people in Rapid City who would appreciate a space like that to, do work during the day, have their work meeting, study, things like that.
I think once weed gets legalized here, I mean, it's legalized now medically and they're having all their little fight over it. But I really feel like once it's legalized recreationally, which it will be, because you're not going to issue all those medical permits and have people making all that money and then there isn't legal, it's just silly to me that they're having the arguments that they're having about it. But once you get that legalized, I think we start to see a sort of different headspace here. I mean, even the Republican Party has voted for it. Yep. So I think that would be a good catalyst for the Cave Collective to continue doing what it's doing. I'm optimistic for you, Dexter. I am. I hope that we can, if you are in the Black Hills or Rapid City area, go to the Cave Collective, go to their shows, look up their website, cavecollective.org. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Very cool. So last question, kind of unrelated. Who would you say, hands down, no holds bar makes the best latte at the makes the best espresso at the Cave Collective coffee bar? Do you think we can arrange like a barista cage fight, or what's the best drink there that somebody can go and get?
Yeah, so my favorite drink is the Dark Nation. That's actually our specialty drinks are named after local bands. So
wow.
The local metal band, and that's our salted caramel mocha.
Yeah. That sounds good.
So it's a really good drink. And I would honestly say that all of our baristas are absolutely fantastic. We're really, really lucky in that regard. If I do want to spotlight a couple people though, because it's pretty much Mary, Andrea, and Willow who run the coffee bar. And Willow is a 17-year-old who
Willow made my Italian soda.
So she's really good.
I remember, her name being Willow, and Andrea was there. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, no, she does a really good job. Mary kind of set the whole menu and trained everybody. So I have to give her huge props too. Like Mary is like the trained barista who, worked it in the field for a couple of years. But I've never had a bad cup of coffee at the Cave.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to with all of that local art around and the good lighting and the nice atmosphere. It's a very, it's a really good central location. It
is. Well, and our coffee so I don't know if you know about our coffee. It's roasted by Daily Adventure Coffee Company, which is a woman-owned micro roastery based out of Haisega.
I hope everybody at home is listening to this. Their shows have a rule that's no misogyny, okay? And they get their coffee from women. That if you're a woman and you're not going to Cave Collective, for shame. I'm very impressed right now. I just want you to know.
Well, women rule the world, and we're just kind of ahead of the curve compared to everybody else.
Oh my God, no wonder you're taken. I'm blushing. All right, very cool. So Dexter, would you like to plug anything, or what would you like people at home to know? How can they get in touch with you, Cave Collective, and the like?
Yeah, so right now we're actually doing our holiday fundraiser. It's a winter cheer at the Cave is here. And so that's on GoFundMe. If you go to our website, thecavecollective.org, you can find links on there as how you can donate to that. Any amount, $5, $500, it helps. Every single dollar really helps out towards the mission. And once again, like what I'd say is if you're listening to this podcast, you've never come to the Cave Collective, come in. I'll let the whole staff know that if you come in and you mention that you heard about the Cave Collective on this podcast, you'll get a free cup of drip coffee. The first one's on us. So
free cup of coffee at Cave Collective. Listen to Bite Me, this episode in particular, just so you know.
That's right.
Very cool. All right. And then the website is www.cavecollective.org, correct?
Thecavecollective.org.
The Cave Collective. You also have presence on Instagram, Facebook, and the like. Is that my understanding?
We sure do. Yeah, we got TikTok, Snapchat. They're probably not as active as they could be because I'm TikTok illiterate. We should have you come down with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to help Cave Collective anytime they need it. Totally free of charge. All right, guys, you heard it here. Go to Cave Collective. We will check you out next time on Bite Me. Check out the website, Insta, Twitter, and I'll see you guys.